I'm Jane Aaron, and I'm past chair of the governing board of the Hall of Fame, which means that I get all the fun of being able to honor the new inductees, but I don't have to make any of the tough decisions anymore. But I have to say, parenthetically, before I begin, that I've adjusted to Bob Brasher's retirement. He was kind of a movie, he's the wings of the Hall of Fame. And I was prepared for Doug Tinsley's retirement, even for Carl Augustus, but Roberta Williams, what would we do without her? I really have to confess, there's too many retirements in a single year. But I ask those of you who are retiring, as I tell you how much we appreciate what you've done, I also ask you not to follow the lead of Kay Farrell and Diane Wormsley and me, who are still practicing and believing it takes a little while to get to that point where you're truly retired. So all the best to Tug, to Carl, to Roberta, and to Bob, who's already doing quite well in retirement. Tonight we're going to honor two new inductees, Dr. Campbell and Sir Francis Campbel. Before we do that, I want to take the opportunity to recall the history of the Hall for a few minutes. The Hall of Fame was conceived back in the 1990s, in the late 1990s, by several professionals in our field, including Rob Cossack, Mike Milipovich, Dean Tuttle, and John Maxson, whose recent passing has saddened us. At the 2002 AER conference in Denver, the idea was conceived that their presentation was a catalyst for APH's willingness to provide a space to house the gallery. In the next photo, you'll see an empty room filled with containing only the energies of Don Keefe, Gary Mudd, Bob Brasher, Jamie Blum, and Will Evans, who helped to initiate the hall and support the development of it. 13 years later, the same room is filled with kiosks remembering each of our 54 Hall of Fame inductees and the extraordinary people who have laid the foundation for our field. During the same year, 2002, the initial year, 32 original inductees were added to the living legends, and they actually attended in person. You see a number of people here, Dr. Natalie Barraga, whom we've lost this year, but many people who were a great group of first inductees. APH staff has shown consistently an extraordinary commitment to development of the hall, and I want to mention some APH staff members who have been involved from the beginning. Bert Boyer, Will Evans, Alice Garrett, Don Keefe, Gary Mudd, Mariana Clennon, and Paul Zerflin were among the originators, the first developers of the hall, and several have provided extraordinary support to creating this history of our field, especially Bob Brasher, who we're now calling Curator Emeritus, and Jamie Blum, who is our current curator, and Chuck Tinsley, who's helped us along in so very many ways and supported the work of the hall. I also want to note the work of Andrew Dakin, who's the artist, an employee of American Freedom House for the Blind, who has done the beautiful plaques that you'll see presented a little later on this evening. And although he couldn't be with us this evening, I hope APH staff members will convey to him our ongoing appreciation of the work he does. Many of you know Dean and Naomi Tuttle, who also contributed for many years as the biographers for the new inductees to the hall. They've retired from this job right now, and now different people, often a nominator or a colleague inductee, takes on this role. Our appreciation goes to APH for making a home for our history, for all of the special things that they have done to allow us to establish this very important home for our field. Before we move to the induction, I want to take a moment to remember two people who were important to the Hall of Fame who died this year. The first, of course, is Dr. Natalie Barraga, who was known for her groundbreaking work in the use of low vision with children, as well as her establishment of the Personal Preparation Program at the University of Texas, and she was inducted into the Hall in 2002. She died on December 29, 2014, at the age of 99. And the first photo you saw there with Natalie holding a basketball, I took at her 95th birthday party. She was a die-hard Texas Longhorns fan, and that was one of her favorite gifts. And you will see a couple of photos from Natalie. But I realized as I was preparing that had Natalie stuck around a little longer, we'd have been celebrating her 100th birthday tomorrow. Tomorrow would have been the day when she turned 100. But just like Natalie, to take things into her own hands and decided it was time to go. But we were sorry to say goodbye to her after so many years. And then secondly, we lost a member of the Hall of Fame community. John Maxson was one of the people who helped to establish the Hall of Fame, which began in 2000, as I mentioned earlier, called the Gallery of Pioneers and Heroes, along with his contributions in establishing the legacy of the Hall. John's known for his leadership of AWB as it merged into the current organization, and his work as training director at Mississippi State University. In fact, when I mentioned that, I was preparing and I mentioned his name to my husband, and he said, "Oh yes, he used to direct the Foundation for Blind Children in Phoenix." And I said, "Oh no, he worked for adults." And then I read John's biography, and that man was an extraordinarily diverse and versatile individual. He continued to serve on our board of directors until just last year, and so we're sad to mourn the passing of John. He was a strong contributor to our field. Okay, let me mention also our current board members, and then we'll get on to the reason why you really came to tonight's program. Jamie Bell, as I mentioned, is now curator and graduate curator emeritus. Lily Rocher chairs our committee, but couldn't be with us tonight. Jim Jeremick has graduated from being past chair back to being a board member. He just loves it so much he can't get off it, and we couldn't do without his good commitment, and especially his fundraising skills. Ray Goodrich is vice chair, Marge Kaiser is secretary, and a member of DJ Regime, and Cusby, and maybe just about finished with the term. Gary White has joined us officially on the board, Rosie Silver, who's with us tonight, Ann Wadsworth from Canada, George Zimmerman from Pittsburgh is our treasurer, and I get to be past chairman, so thank you to all of the board members for their hard work. Okay, I want to begin first by, we'll be honoring Sir Francis Campbel as an inductee, and I'll mention that Sir Francis Campbel was nominated by Dr. Mike Bina, and his supporting letters were provided by Ron Cossack and by Jim Oldham, I believe. So pleased to be able to induct Sir Francis Campbel, and I'm going to turn the podium over to Mary Flynn, and I'll tell you a little bit about Sir Francis Campbel, and I get to be the second of his family members. Usually see the world from up here, but I always appreciate the stay. First, I want to begin this induction ceremony as I want to thank the Board of Governors for your invitation to present this honor and this induction presentation to Sir Francis Campbel as we bring him into the Hall of Fame of Leaders in the blindness field. This is a touching honor for me to be able to do this, especially because my late husband, Rick Welch, initiated the nomination of Sir Francis Campbel, and our dear friend, Mike Bina, carried that nomination forward. Rick would be thrilled with tonight's events. Before I go on telling you a bit about Sir Francis, I would like to welcome his family and recognize them. We have 5 members of Sir Francis' family with us. We have Fred Campbell, who is on the dais with me. This is a great-grandson of Sir Francis, and his great-great-grandson of Sir Francis, and his wife, Anna, and they're here from Michigan. And then we have Walter Meade from Pittsburgh, who is also a great-great-grandson. And then we have Nick Meade, also from Pittsburgh, who is a great-great-great-grandson of Sir Francis Campbel. Oh, don't mind, I'm going to adjust. That's easier for me to see. Okay. With this induction, Francis Campbell joins his son, Charles F. Campbell, making them the only set of family members to share a place in the Hall of Fame. And for those of us who are writers or who have fun with language, folks such as Warren Bledsoe or Jane Heron or Mike Bina. We know the power of the lowly comma and the difference its placement can make in the meaning of a sentence. Take, for example, the phrase, yes, Sir Francis is now in the Hall of Fame. Or, as his family might say, yes, sir, Francis is in the Hall of Fame. Either way, it's true that as of tonight, Francis Joseph Campbell is in the Hall of Fame, and I want to congratulate the Hall's Board of Governors on their wise choice. But those of you unfamiliar with this remarkable leader may be asking, who was this sir, and why are we honoring him? The answer is a fascinating and inspiring story. There is so much rich history in the life and the contributions of this Campbell family that went on for generations in our field. But tonight, we will focus on Francis. In his classic book, The Conquest of Blindness, H. Randolph Latimer wrote, Francis Joseph Campbell was at once an idealist and a realist, a scholar and a diplomat, a musician and a gymnast, a progressive and a rebel. Whether scaling Mount Blanc or the clavichord, he kept his feet on the ground, his tongue in leash, and his ear upon the starter. Francis Joseph Campbell was born in 1832, the son of an agrarian family in rural Middle Tennessee. He was a bright, determined, and all-boy youngster, and that did not change when at the age of 5 he was struck in the eye with a locust thorn. Infection resulting from this injury caused him to lose sight in both eyes. About this, Latimer also wrote, born a rebel, he refused to accept the limitations incident to his handicap, exploring at his own risk every nook and corner of the rugged countryside. The physical independence thus developed carried over into every phase of his career, and it became the basic principle of each new venture. End quote. And I think when Fred accepts this honor tonight, you'll see even more evidence of that kind of tenacity and determination. In 1844, Francis Campbell, then called Joe, became the second pupil accepted into the newly established Tennessee School for the Blind. A preliminary test by the school staff showed him to be lacking in musical talent and said he couldn't sing and denied him music lessons. Of this, he later stated, quote, I confess that it aroused my indignation that it should be supposed that there was anything I could not learn. This Scottish determination, this can-do attitude, and his presumption of the competence of all people who were blind set the tone for his life's work, for his life, and for the legacy he left us. And this is exactly what Warren Bledsoe meant when he wrote, Francis Campbell was the character and personality on which modern work for the blind hinged. Thus, the trajectory of his career and the work for which we honor him in the Hall of Fame. But back to the story of his life. At age 18, while yet still a senior at the Tennessee School for the Blind, he was appointed a teacher of music there. And shortly after, the superintendent left, and while still a teenager, he served for nearly half a year as the interim superintendent. Joe, as he was known, was also assigned to recruit students for the school. So to do this, he saddled up his horse Nellie, and he, with a sighted friend, traveled hundreds of miles of rural Tennessee, telling the story of the school and convincing parents to send their youngsters to the School for the Blind. And thus, he is even an ancestor of our current outreach programs.
He earned a bachelor's degree from the University of Tennessee, and he did this largely by teaching music. And he moved then to Massachusetts to advance his study of music. While there, Francis, not yet 25 years old, had a legendary encounter with Dr. Samuel Gridley Howe, a powerful and renowned director of the Perkins School for the Blind. Somehow, Campbell had finagled an opportunity to visit Perkins, and at that time, Howe didn't generally allow visitors on campus. But Campbell got there and spent the day, and as he was leaving, he ran into Dr. Howe. So Dr. Howe asked the 25-year-old Francis what he thought of the school. And here, Campbell's trademark philosophy and Scottish candor were precise. "I do not like it, sir." Stunned at the impertinence, Dr. Howe asked why. And to that, the young teacher replied, "Because you are not training the blind to be independent." Howe wanted to hear more, and he invited Campbell to his home for dinner that night. The two stayed in touch, and after several months of correspondence, Howe invited Campbell to join the staff of Perkins. Now, the story here gets really complicated. I'm not going to take you all through that, but I will summarize you for you what happened. But I encourage you to read the literature and some of the articles and some of the research that's out there, because it's a fascinating, fascinating story, but it is complicated. So the story goes on that he moves to Perkins, and Howe allowed him to set up an own separate program within the school, and to base this program on his pretty revolutionary and very, very subversive approach, which was to encourage and even require physical training as well as academic and mathematical achievement. At the end of Campbell's 11 years with this program, 19 of his 20 students had graduated and had become fully employed. And that was remarkable when compared to the results for every other set of students. Summarizing this chapter in his life, Rick Welsh wrote, "It is not the success of Campbell's approach to teaching that led me to suggest he is one of the major sources of professionalism in the field. It is rather his scientific approach to his work and his willingness to measure his results to be evaluated based on them. It was also his commitment to addressing all the needs of the students, academic needs, physical training, social skills, music, and vocational training that made his approach stand out in work for the blind, both at that time and now, 130 plus years later." But now he's leaving Perkins, and his impact continues on a different continent. In 1868, Campbell took a 3-year sabbatical to study music in Berlin and Leipzig, Germany. And as he was returning to the United States, he stopped in London for what he thought was going to be a brief visit. Instead, it lasted the rest of the century. He was returning, and on the first evening in London, he was invited to, and this is what they call it, a blind tea. And at this event, there were more than 300 blind English citizens. He visited with them and inquired about their situations, their employment, and was appalled that there was little. And he noted that not one of them had arrived at the party independently. That night, he did not sleep well as he worried and pondered over the conditions there. Again, his Scottish determination came to the fore, and he determined that he must do something and look into this disturbing situation. Campbell visited all the schools and workshops for the blind in London and began a determined campaign to again make a difference. He developed a cadre of backers within the London aristocracy and convinced the wealthy Duke of Westminster that blind people have potential to be independent, and he convinced him of the value of his own approach to teaching them. Again, the ensuing events became very complicated, fascinating, but complicated. So to summarize it, I'll say that he even took the matter to Queen Victoria in a commission and a witness to her, and continued to garner the support of the Duke of Westminster. After one of the meetings with the Duke surreptitiously followed Francis on his way home, not knowing or not letting him know that he was being observed. He saw Francis independently use a bus and then a train to get back home unaided. At that point, the Duke is reported to have said, "I'm going to put my money on that man." And he did. So with a major gift from the Duke, Campbell purchased a large parcel of land where on March 1st, 1872, he established England's first school for the blind, the Royal Normal College and Academy for the Blind. This new school operated on Campbell's belief with good instruction, blind people could accomplish almost anything they set out to do. By the end of the century, the school not only had developed its campus, but it expanded to include 12 blind teachers trained there at the school, and they were supervising over 200 blind students in the local schools throughout London. Campbell's success and positive approach brought him recognition throughout the English-speaking world. On July 22nd, 1909, he was knighted by King Edward VII, and thus he became Sir Francis Campbell. In an article published about the entire Campbell family in the Journal Review, Rick Welsh wrote, "Much of what vision professionals have come to expect of people who live without vision, and what professionals do to support them, can be attributed to the work and insights of Francis Campbell. To understand his life and his work is to comprehend one of the basic building blocks of our profession." And in closing, I want to read what Mike Bean has written. While he achieved international acclaim for his work in England, when one studies his life's work, it is his influencing of others in the United States that had the most profound impact. As Perkins graduate Helen Keller was influenced by Annie Sullivan, Dr. Samuel Ridley Howe especially benefited from his teacher, Francis Campbell. Campbell's influence in changing teaching philosophy to focus on the whole child to ensure that they develop into well-rounded, grounded individuals is most meaningful. Mike continues to write, his approach put equal emphasis on the academic, social, career, and physical domains. Today, the expanded core curriculum aptly describes those content areas that Campbell advocated for nearly a century earlier. A case could be made that Mr. Campbell is the father of the expanded core. And I close with a statement, a lovely statement. Sir Francis Campbell's influence extends as a role model even today. He did not just advocate for independence, he demonstrated it. As the patriarch of the first family of the blindness field, the life and work of Sir Francis Campbell continue to guide and inspire us. And yes, Sir Francis is in the Hall of Fame. Thank you. I want to introduce to you Fred Campbell of Michigan, great grandson. I'll get it right. thought this it was really great. Fred, will you come up and accept the flag, please? Here we have the flag for Sir Francis Campbell.
First of all, thank you very much to the board for making this decision to broaden the focus from just America to include the great work that was done in England that influences us all. And I'd like to tell you some stories that come down from the family. My father was 8 years old when Sir Francis died. And I've been gone, haven't seen my father, didn't talk about it with my father since I've been over 50 years, so some of this may be a little changed or a little embellished, but in any case, the family remembers that Sir Francis was growing up in that middle southern Tennessee area south of Nashville. And he was an abolitionist, and he was teaching the black to read. And back in those days, which was just after the Civil War, this was something that you did not do. In fact, the local community decided that what you did with these kind of people was hang them. However, they decided that since he was blind and probably couldn't tell the difference, maybe they should let him off. However, they did ostracize him, and that's why he left southern Tennessee. It is said that when he was in England, he did several things which were important. One of the things my father told me about was the playground that he created, which was a 50-foot square of grass bordered by a 10-foot border of gravel, by a 10-foot border of brick, so that a blind child could run full tilt until they hit the gravel and they would know they needed to turn. I have seen pictures of that. When I was in England, I thought I would go and see if they still had one, but I didn't get there. And then there was the bicycle, which was built for 12. Each rider had two wheels and one-sided person on the front steering the whole through. And so you could get 11 blind people with one-sided person and go for a 25-mile ride. They were pivoted in the middle. I've seen pictures of this bicycle. If you look up the literature, you can see where it is. Oh, by the way, if you look up on the internet, you may find some confusion, because the internet says that he was run out of Tennessee as an abolitionist and not Tennessee. Out of Wisconsin and not Tennessee. The other thing I'd really like to talk to you about is this piece of wood. This is over 130 years old. It is Sir Francis Campbell's climbing stock, which was used for the climbing in the Swiss Alps and the Pyrenees, which he did as, quote, advertisement because he liked it. Every time he did it, of course, back in the 1880s, 1890s, he would make headlines. There's one story that says he even led the Queen of England up one of the slopes, one of the mountains. My sister remembers that he went up Mount Blanc. However, there are 17 names pressed into this stock. And Bob here has a list of the 17, and Mount Blanc is not included, which is very interesting to me. There's another story about him going up, and when he climbed, he usually had a guide in front on the rope and a guide behind on the rope. And he took more time, of course, to go up the mountain than other people. So the younger people who were going up at the same time would leave afterwards and get there first. And they were all the time commenting about why would a blind person climb a mountain. And then when they got to the top, it was all fogged in. They couldn't see a thing. And he sat them all down and said, point me to the north, and then began to describe what you would see to the north, and then to the west, and then to the south, and then to the east, in great detail, not quite graphically. And about that time, the fog lifted, and they were able to see exactly what he had described. He climbed the mountains because he enjoyed it. And the list of names on here is quite impressive. However, you will find if you try to look many of them up, that they are no longer hikes. there are hotels and train stops there, or there's something else. So think about doing this 100 years ago, before those hotels were built. The other part of it comes to the present. Just this afternoon, I was visiting with Michael Hunt at the trivia counter. You know, that little game that we play. And we got to talking about this because I knew I was bringing it. And he said, well, you know, it was in 1947 that after the Second World War and the rehabilitation of some of the soldiers coming back, that the long cane a lot of people use now for to navigate became developed. And he had then come and he said, I've been doing some reading about Sir Francis, and he mentioned that idea during his life. And so I have a wonder, is this what gave the inspiration for all of the canes that everybody now uses? This is a fire-hardened piece of wood. It's got the original vernacular. It's been passed down through the family. He is the oldest son. Thank you all very much for inducting Sir Francis and allowing him now to catch up with his son. I will never do that to my father.
It's a little bittersweet for me to help in honoring Alan as the second inductee this year. Like many other people in this room, I knew him as a valued colleague who accomplished so much in his 50 years of life, as one of the most committed researchers and innovative thinkers in the field. It's tempting to wonder what his next steps in research would have been had he had more time. Alan succeeded me as editor-in-chief of the Journal of Visual Impairment and Blindness. I was the first field-based editor, and in that role I recognized all the challenges and problems. As the second person in the role, Alan solved them all. That's the kind of person he was. We also were collaborators in a large team of people who were involved in the ABC Braille study, which will be forever grateful for the support from Ralph Bartley and the American Printing House. And after Alan's death in 2005, each time our team faced a problem with the research project, we'd look at each other and we'd say, what would Alan say? And often the answer would come to us after that question, usually with the words of his close friend and colleague, Kay Holbrook, who worked with him in developing the Learning Media Assessment and many other projects, as you'll hear. Alan changed literary practices of blind and visually impaired children, not only because he was strongly committed to the importance of reading, but also because he was a brilliant researcher who explored important questions, developing and using methods that teachers could learn and apply. Alan was nominated as an inductee by Dr. Kay Holbrook, and letters of support were provided by Dr. Diane Wormsley, Dr. Kay Farrell, and Dr. Carol Fahrenkopf. In her letter of support, Diane described the intense focus that enabled him to change other people's beliefs, citing his work with BAM that laid the foundations for the current UEB. Diane said that he assisted with the analysis of hundreds of surveys that provided information about what Braille readers thought about code change, and Alan was always one to listen to the end user, the people he felt really mattered. Kay, in her letter, said he did everything we all wish we could, but he did twice as much of it, and she described him as a true revolutionary. Now, many of you are wondering why I'm up here saying these words instead of Alan's dearest friend and valued colleague, Kay Holbrook. I'm honored that she asked me to speak for her tonight so that she could celebrate Alan without the extra tension of delivering the speech. So after this point, I'm going to be kind of a surrogate speaker. I'm going to speak Kay's words to you, and keep that in mind. She said, I think it must be rare for someone to find the perfect spot to do what they were meant to do and be who they were meant to be. If this were really possible, it was true for Alan. Not only was he totally committed to his work to improve the educational lives of students with visual impairments, but he was really skilled at it. His personality, intelligence, work ethic, and compassion combined into a force of nature in the field, one that was both inspiring and amazing to watch. I had the good fortune to watch Alan's considerable talents through many situations. Through my close work with Alan, he taught me so much. I met him when we were both doctoral students, Alan at Vanderbilt and me, meaning Kay, at Florida State University. Kathy Hubner would have said we were destined to meet because as teachers of students with visual impairments, we were both subjects in her doctoral research. Is it good news or bad news? Alan and I met at CEC in Anaheim, California, and we quickly realized we had similar interests. At a meeting of young scholars in Washington, we began discussing an idea that occurred to us both simultaneously, developing a process to help education teams make decisions about whether a student with low vision should use print or braille. Our original discussions grew into a conceptual article that was published by JVIB. By this time, Alan was on the faculty at Texas Tech University, and I was on the faculty at Johns Hopkins. We met halfway in Nashville to complete this article. It's the first of many writing retreats that took us to Nassau, Maui, Branford, Missouri, Hot Springs, Arkansas, and Las Vegas. We set up dueling computers and used line-by-line editing. During those experiences and others, I learned from Alan the importance of ego-less mess. We trusted each other and were able to comfortably give and take criticism that always made writing better. He was an amazing communicator. In meetings, he was often silent and listened carefully until it was time for him to speak. And when he did, the room went silent and listened to his wisdom. Donna McNair once said that Alan gave our field a professional vocabulary. His concise use of appropriate jargon-free language helped us express ourselves in ways that made our arguments more forceful. He was a prolific writer and a sought-after presenter because of his no-nonsense but compassionate manner in speaking the truth. I love this story. When we first started to have access to email, Alan called me at UALR and asked if I had an email address. I did, but I didn't have any idea how to use it or any understanding of the usefulness of email. We all do there. He patiently explained it to me and said, okay, let's hang up the phone and I'll send you an email. We did, and in just a minute, my first email came through. Hi, Kay. I immediately called Alan back and said, we laughed and talked about what this might mean. Then he said, okay, now you try to send me one. And I did. And when he got it, he emailed me back. We went back and forth that day several times until we both got comfortable with sending email messages, using the telephone at least as much that day to talk about email. Effective and efficient communication. I learned this from Alan. As dedicated as he was to improving educational situation, he was also dedicated to supporting his graduate students. He was a generous and considerate colleague who pulled people into projects and freely contributed his expertise to colleagues on their own projects. A review of his publication record shows that very few of his publications were single-author ones. They were collaborative efforts that reflected Alan's deep belief in the power of partnership. He was as thrilled at the success of a student or colleague as he was at his own successes. The power of collegiality. I learned this from Alan. There are so many other lessons from Alan that it would take the rest of my life to explain them all, and I would spend the rest of my life being grateful for all the time I was blessed to spend with Alan Koenig. Thank you, Kay, for helping us to remember Alan. I'm honored to present to Steve a plaque to mark Alan's induction into the Hall of Fame. Legends and leaders of the Louisville field.
Well, thank you very much. You've already introduced my family this saw the picture up here. Alan was the second of 7 kids. He was my father was the first to leave the farm. Come from a history of farmers. I was thinking driving down today, Dad was a farmer, we might still be farmers. Hard to imagine Alan being a farmer. As you know him. What about his personality? I guess this is the question. I was looking at that picture of the camping trip. He would have been about 25 or 26. 6 boys. You know, you knew his personality. 5 of those boys were pretty wild and into motorcycles and into fast cars and into guns and into hunting. All those things. And then there was Alan. And Alan was the quiet one. He was the contemplative one. And wanted to talk a lot about things he did not say a lot. And most of our mouths were running all the time. We worked hard, we played hard, studied hard. So, in the end, I was really just kind of thinking, what is it about the character? We take no credit for it. Maybe we shaped it a little bit, probably between my folks and those